You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Taps and Teas. And today, I'm going to talk about something that I really enjoy doing, but I also hate doing. And let's talk about that. So before I started my own agency, I had started out as a recruiter or headhunter. And when I first started, I didn't know anybody. So I had to spend a ton of time on the phone. There was breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, everything that would go into creating relationships and making sure that those were good relationships, whether they were buying our services or potential candidates down the road, whether it was right then and there or in the future. So I spent a ton of time talking to people and endless conversations. And I think at last count, did close to 10,000 and change interviews. I think it was 10,140 something, just counting them up. Like when you have that many conversations and you're tasked with making that many phone calls, sending that many emails just to hit your numbers, you kind of remember all this. And it's really fascinating when I look back on it. So when doing that, you get a lot of people that call you and looking for advice, which I don't mind giving. I don't mind talking to people. I don't mind helping them out of a situation at all. What's really fascinating about it is when that comes back to you or if it doesn't. So I always get that question, back then, can I pick your brain? And it was really around networking. So when you're in that mode of going to a breakfast meeting to meet somebody, and then you're meeting somebody else at lunch, in between there, maybe you made like 10 phone calls, you're leaving messages, you leave lunch, you make another 1,500 phone calls, that many, yes, every day. And then you go to a networking event. Picking your brain is pretty much what people are doing. But in that framework, you're looking for people that you can then talk to more. And, you ask for a favor. You say, oh, yeah, you can pick my brain on this. And then it's reciprocal. Like, oh, do you know anybody at XYZ company or somebody that is a network engineer or great programmer? And normally you get a response back. Good people always network with good people. So doing that for many years and then moving into more of a sales role. When I first started my agency, the earliest forms of my agency and networking there, I was always known as a big networker. 3 nights, 5 nights, 6 nights a week, be out. And yes, I said 6 nights. Sometimes you go to a charity event, you would go do other things just to create those relationships. And you'd always get that question, or you get the ending of that conversation, hey, I'd love to pick your brain sometime. When you go to events, you meet somebody new, whether it's a marketing event or something where you're sitting there, any general event, where people are just interacting. And it's like, I'd love to pick your brain about this. I can't believe you started your own business. Can I pick your brain about that? And you always hear it, and it's a big time commitment to do it right. And I did it right for many, many years, and I still do it right. But for that, that's how I was earning my living. Like I had to create those relationships. I had to go out. I had to do that all the time. So when I got into some different roles in my career, I would always hear about other people talking about that. And like, well, you should talk to Marty about this, or you should, meet with Marty. And I get so many requests. And at the time, like when you're a headhunter, you don't realize that you kind of love it. You're like, okay, I know this person now. I know that person now. How can this work? What else is going to go on? And you start to put them on you start to plot them out. Who do I need to network? And you get really strategic about it. And that really helped me when I started Bad Rhino as well. You get strategic about it. And I knew how to do that really quickly. If there's a new industry or anything like that. But always at the end of those times, you get, can I pick your brain? And sometimes you had to suck it up and you just be like, yeah, you can pick my brain. And, how many times I hung up the phone or it was on a Skype chat and just be like, oh man, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, how can I wrap this up? Because this person's wasting my time. So when I moved into the start of building Bad Rhino and having an agency, I did the same thing that I would rely on when I was a recruiter, just create relationships as fast as possible. So it was out 3, 4, 5, 6 nights a week, going to different events, creating a new network. I had a very good and I still do, a very good network in certain industries, especially in the Philadelphia area where I was based as a recruiter, where I could call one or two people and get to somebody pretty quickly. And that took a lot of time to build up, and I didn't take it lightly, but I also respected people's time. And that was a huge thing. It was like when I saw some things in the marketing area or in the small business community, people like took advantage is not the word I want to use. I don't want to put it in a bad light, but just didn't understand the concept. It depends what industry you're in. If you're an engineer or you sit behind a computer all day and you finally get the guts to go out there and talk to somebody and then you want to pick their brain, it's always funny. It's just like, do you understand how this works? And I found like a lot of people didn't. And whenever I speak with college students, even 10, 15 years ago, but now I always talk to them about the value of being able to network like that. But just remember, you're taking somebody's time. That time is very valuable. You never get it back. So now I'm starting Bad Rhino 8 years ago now. And, looking at different things, and I'm starting to do all this networking. And it was like, I was the one asking to pick somebody's brain because I wanted to learn as fast as possible. And the best way you could do it was talk to other agency owners, talk to people that were freelancers in marketing, graphic designers, website designers, everything you could think of that goes into a digital agency. And I'm sitting there going to them going, can I pick your brain? And I caught myself. I was like, oh shit. I'm asking them to give up their time. And I would set up things, dinners, lunch, breakfast, coffee, whatever it was. I would just get there and I would make sure it was easy for them. So if they were sitting there and they said, yeah, I'm in New York City. Okay, I'll jump on the train. Like, what's a good time? It's like 2 hours from me from Philadelphia. They would say 9 o'clock. And, look, I'll have like 15 minutes or so. And I'm like, okay, can I meet you at a place? I'm like, if I'm coming up there, let's just agree on a time. And if you need to change it a little bit, that's okay. I'm going to spend a good chunk of the day up there now. And I would come up there and I would get to Penn Station and, get somewhere. And I would get there super early. And I would wait for this person. And they were like, wow, I didn't think you would show up. And I was like, well, I don't want to take advantage of or miss the opportunity to speak with you. And some of these people, if I mention some of the names, were pretty big in the marketing world. And I was just excited that they gave me the time of day. And I just went there on my own dime. I would go there and I would sit down. And as soon as they would order something, I would be like, I got this. I would take care of their cup of coffee, their lunch, their dinner, their drinks, whatever it was. And those 15-minute conversations turned into hours sometimes. And I was getting so much great advice. And then afterwards, I would send them a gift. Sometimes if it was just a 10-minute quick call or a quick meeting, I would put like a Starbucks gift card in a thank you card and send it to them and say, hey, thanks for the cup of coffee. Your next one's on me too. Or if they mentioned something that I knew they were interested in, like they said, oh yeah, we always go to Morton's Steakhouse or whatever. I would buy a nice gift certificate and send it to them. And it's just like, thank you. And that's paid back so much, creating those great relationships and not creating like strife in there of like having that situation where you're like, oh man, I just wasted somebody's time.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
So when I started doing a lot of that, I would just come up with a plan and I would set up a bunch of meetings and sit in one place. If it was convenient for them, I would always make it convenient for that person. So when I started being more sought after, I started doing the same thing. I very rarely will turn down like a referral, at least having a phone conversation, because I know what it feels like. I know how tough it is if you're, back when I was recruiting for jobs, if you're unemployed or if you were looking for something else to do or trying to get into a new position, I always found it was like a trying time for that person. For some reason, they're looking for a new opportunity, and some were in different places, but I always had respect for that. I always had a good feel for that. Like, hey, this person really has no idea, and I have some information that can help them. And those networking things and those conversations have definitely paid off. But I would always sit there and make sure that I understood what was going on. So I have a couple rules. And if you notice, if you looked at what this is titled is, you want to pick my brain? Okay, where do I send the invoice? And the reason is over time, I think this has been lost, and it's probably been lost forever. It's just really starting to affect me in a different way now. So I always have a couple of rules for everybody when they're thinking about doing this. So these are the Marty rules here. These are, other people might have other rules, but these are all about me here because it's my podcast. And I get to make the rules, at least in this small little bit of where I control my content in the world. So if you're going to catch me and you want to pick my brain, the best way to do it is to offer a couple different things. One, hey, you want to go out for a drink. If you want to go and grab a couple beers, you might be able to pick my brain for hours as long as you keep ordering the beers. If you want to have lunch, that's great. Pick up the tab. I don't care if we're at a burger joint. I don't care if we're at a nice restaurant. But if you ask me and we agree to go to lunch, don't ask me to split the bill. I mean, let's just think about that. This happened to me recently, so this actually is like perfect to talk about here. I had a gentleman, very, executive level. We're not talking about somebody that was starting out. I mean, college kid, if they came to me and said, hey, I know so-and-so, or they were referred to me, I definitely would not expect them to pick up the tab. If they offered, I would be like, that's very nice, but I'd be like, how about we split it? Or how about I pick it up and you get it next time after you get that job you want? Just being a little respectful of where they are in their situation. So I go out. This gentleman's been hounding me for a short period of time, was introduced by a colleague, a former colleague. And I was like, sure, I'm like, let's make sure that we're both on the same page because my time's pretty valuable. But, if this person, I'm always a little bit more, my antenna go up like, hey, I should probably meet this. If so-and-so is going to refer me out of my network to somebody new, that's awesome. Let's talk. So we finally set a date. It took about 6 weeks back and forth to kind of get a date. And we finally settled out and we go to lunch, comes to my office. We walk up the street and go to lunch. And we go through the whole thing and, it's a great conversation and the bill comes. So I'm just under the assumption I'm not going to touch that thing. Like, you asked me for the meeting. I'm assuming that you kind of know this. And he goes, can you split it? Well, he just ruined all credibility with me right then and there. And here's why. He wants me to refer him to other people for a marketing position or freelance opportunities that I may know. Well, honestly, that was one of the rudest things I've ever encountered. After picking my brain for about an hour and 5 minutes, taking an hour and all said and done, like an hour and 15 out of my day on a $30 tab, goes, can you split it? And like, how am I supposed to refer to you to other premier people in my network for an executive level position? And then they say, great, how about you and I go out to lunch because Marty refers you there? And they say, wow, he stiffed me for the bill in a way, Now, it's different for everything, but if you're just going to pick somebody's brain, you should at least have the common courtesy to pick up the tab. At speaking events, if I'm ever speaking somewhere and you get a chance to hear me speak or, hopefully you like it and you want to talk to me, I will talk to anybody that comes up to me after that. It's such an honor and a privilege to speak in front of people, whether it's a small chamber of commerce event or a larger industry event. I don't take that lightly. And if people come and pay money and that those places are having me there to represent whatever I'm talking about in the marketing world, absolutely, I'm going to answer all your questions. I'll even probably offer to have a quick 10-minute phone call down the road as well. But that's a different thing. You just have to be respectful of the time. So I started saying this a few years back, and I would say, hey, you want to pick my brain? Great. Where do I send the invoice? And it would stop people in their tracks. And that's why I titled this one and just throwing out some information out there, because I think it's important to know, like, when you talk to other people, how you set that up. And it's not that, you want to be standoffish. I definitely don't. I will take a conversation with just about anybody at certain points. If I can help them out or if they're referred to me by a buddy, I will absolutely take the time to at least email, follow up, find out what they need. And sometimes it could be another podcast interview that I was on. Be like, hey, check out this podcast interview because what you want to talk about, I cover there, or read my book. It has a lot of information, and just give them like, hey, you want to go to chapter 3 right away. And right in there, you'll see something. Or go to Bad Rhino's blog. We have the information there, and send them a link. Take a look at that. If that doesn't answer your question, send me some other questions. I can get back to you via email. But get to the the interesting part of it. If you're going to pick somebody's brain and you want to do it over a conversation in person, pick up the tab. It's as simple as that. So that's it for today. I want to keep this one short and sweet, but it's something that I think is very interesting, and always the way to approach somebody's the right way. And if you are meeting them, pick up the tab so I don't have to send you an invoice. Have a great day.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.